good afternoon on my behalf too. I'm Elina Lappalainen and I'm business journalist covering startups, venture funding and technology. Also a geek girl, feminist and women in tech. This is a special week actually for me since this is my last week in Talouselämä magazine as a business journalist there before some new challenges, so stay tuned about that. But I wanted to come here because this issue, women in tech and female founders in startups, has been on my agenda during my whole career in Talouselämä. Actually, one of the first articles, 2011, in there was about it. I wrote about a future female network and listed some of the very early female founders, and there weren't many. Since then, the situation has been going towards better time, and you are one of the examples, you two here. And that's great development, but there's still a lot to do. Here, today we are to talk about how to retain women in tech industry by making the tech culture inclusive. But before we go, there's one question for in online audience. Please answer and attend the poll. The question is, how many % of your organization's employees are female? And we go through the results a bit later then. And now, let's start with a bit of introduction. Could you all tell about yourself and what's your relationship to this topic? Tomas, please.
So, as a country managing director, I'm responsible for 1,000 people in Accenture. And of course, it makes a lot of business sense to have a diverse organization. I also have a responsibility to the people that we employ to make sure that they have equal opportunity. On a more personal note, my wife is making a career in tech, and I have 2 daughters, 17 and 19, who I want to make sure have all the possibilities in the world as well.
First of all, pleasure to be here. My name is Ekaterina Gianelli, and I'm one of the partners at Inventure. It's a Nordic venture capital firm. We invest in and work with early-stage startups to help them grow and to help them build their teams.
Okay, so I'm Anna-Maria Henell. It's actually funny that I'm in Women in Tech Forum because the technology was never my primary thing I wanted to do. So it was kind of to study the tech was as a kind of a backup thing for me because I wanted to make an impact in the world, and tech wasn't kind of shown as I can do something for that. So when I went for education in the University of Technology, it's kind of really specific on what you want to study, and you need to be interested in a machine or coding or construction or something, and I didn't kind of see myself there. And well, anyway, I went there because I needed to get some job or so. So I went to work first for a really big technology corporation. And I did what typically a woman or whoever in tech is doing. So doing this kind of project work related to that specific area I was studying. And only after I created the own company, I actually understood what the technology really can bring to you. So it's not that you need to go and study and do that for the rest of your life, but the technology enables you to create something great together with other people. And only now when I have the company, I know that this is what we should do, and this is how we can get women to learn tech, because you can show them on what you can do. And what I today do is very far from that material science I studied. So we do medical technology software for surgeons and radiologists for better diagnosis and all that. And that is kind of really close to what I want to do and how can I make an impact to the world.
So we have different angles on this topic, a big international technology company, venture fund, and a startup founder. Different angles, but I think we will find a common space here. The segregation is quite heavy in Finnish technology field. Only 19% of those who study technology are female, and only 22% of employees on technology companies are women. Thomas Nyström, as a global organization, Accenture has been one of the forerunners on driving diversity and inclusive culture. What measures you have taken? What do you do?
So I think that it starts by acknowledging the fact that we just heard from Yasin earlier, that it makes complete business sense to have a diverse organization, right? So as companies seek to be more profitable and to grow, they should employ diversity as one way to get there. And we put that into play. So we have 500,000 employees around the world. It's quite a lot of people, right? And we set a clear objective that by 2025, so 5 years from now, we should be a completely diverse organization, 50-50 in gender split, but we don't, of course, talk about diversity only on the gender axis. There's all kinds of diversity, cultural, racial, individual, and we want to have a truly diverse organization as a company. And we're working against that very systematically at this point in time, making progress towards that 50-50 goal. Actually, globally right now, we have 44% of our people are women, and here in Finland we are at 38%.
Can you tell a little bit more about the measures you actually do in every day? What kind of things you have diversity, education, and etc.?
Well, we do quite a lot of things, right? We publish a lot of research around this. Because one of the things you need to do as a big organization is to make some noise around this, right? It's not only kind of an internal thing, you need to be public and vocal about this. Strategy today is a public topic. So we're very clear on our objectives and we make it very clear, public, that what we want to do. But then if you look at all the things we do, it's quite a lot of different things. In our research last year, I think we listed 40 topics that do these things, right? But in general, if we categorize them, you need to be, clear on the leadership topic, and that means your leadership needs to believe this. You need to be, it's very difficult to be a leader if you're not transparent, and building equal culture is about being transparent, and that means that I need to believe in these things myself, right? It starts there, otherwise it will not work, and that's what our leaders do. We do a lot of training around this. For all of our people on bias, on inclusion and diversity. We're just running a campaign again in Finland right now this month to run training sessions on this, actually. We want to support women. So it's not about them managing this on their own. We put in play a number of measures around coaching, support networks. So with that as an example is how we operate, right? So there's a lot of focus on this internally, and at the end of the day, we want to be in position where we have strong internal women leaders in the company. So they are role models, and actually, we have a female CEO now, Julie Sweet.
How does this sound to you, Ekaterina and Anna-Maria, when you think about building diversity and inclusive culture in your teams? How do you compare it to what Tomas said?
Well, I can maybe start with the current state of affair in the VC and startup space altogether. So if you think about the numbers, last year only 1% of the venture capital was invested in female founders team. Around Europe, in the Nordics, the situation is very similar. So we're talking about 1 to 2%. In the VC space, the situation is not much better. So according to the recent research that Tesi, one of the major institutional LPs, has done, only 12% of VC professionals are female, and half of the funds didn't have a single woman in their investment team. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we need a change. So in my view, we of course need more women to start, run, and own the businesses. And if we want to, I'm a big believer that if you want to see a change, you need to create it. So if I think about what we do at Inventure, of course we pay a lot of attention to how we recruit, both as Inventure as well as our startups. So when we invest in startups, we need to see diversity in their teams from the beginning because it's impossible to fix it later. When it comes to our own team, we already have 8 nationalities in a small 12-people team, so we are very, very particular about what we hire for. If I think about hiring processes, we try to look for culture adds and not culture fits. So I can just give you a personal example. We just opened a job search for an investment analyst, and we know that typically it's associated with very masculine profiles and finance, data, etc., while in reality it's not. It's a lot about people. So we have been proactively encouraging people with different backgrounds to apply. So I would say that if you want to see the change, think about what you can do today in your daily life in terms of your own team or in terms of your own decisions.
Well, this is very visible change if you happen to have a diverse team. I've covered some Finnish VC funds with only male partners, so it's quite obvious that there's a lot to do. But Anna-Maria, how do you build diversity and inclusivity in your startup?
Well, if I can first comment on kind of what you said. So I was 20 years in a big corporation as a woman in tech, and I saw the change in there already. So it's kind of, I like that the thing is now noticed. So it's talked about, and you kind of make noise about it. And really, I don't remember kind of 25 years anyone talking that inclusivity or diversity is building business profit. Nobody told or was so talking about that. So in that sense, I think it's great that it's there. Then on the other hand, on the startup phase, I don't know how old the culture is, maybe not that old in Finland anyway, so it might not be there yet. So as if I think about myself or my colleagues, the few of them that I know, maybe no one had the dream in the beginning to be an entrepreneur or go for a VC money. So it's not something that you dream about or build your career towards that. So maybe there is not that much of a culture of it yet, and that's why there are so few of us. And it would be great to have this kind of network and people to kind of talk about it, what it is like. For our own team, I'm just looking, we are on that same purple to 25% of women in the team. In the startup, when you build up a team, there are so many things to do. So it's maybe not the first thing I think about diversity, even though I know all the lovely things about it. So I need to just build a functional thing first. And there, so it's more or less, doesn't depend who you are or where you come from, if you just know how to fit in. So that's the primary thing.
How big your team is now?
It's 15, 16.
And you have
three
women. Okay.
Yes.
In what roles?
I'm one. Second is senior algorithm developer. And then we have one sales application manager. So one is towards the customers, one is high-tech kind of coding, and then I'm the one.
Is it difficult to hire women to tech roles?
There is not that many applicants, actually.
I think that's maybe the main challenge, that instead of waiting for people to apply, you have to proactively look for them, or at least that has been our strategy, and that has been very helpful. So for us, it's more important to fix the blind spots that we have in our companies but by investing maybe more time into these searches rather than getting someone quicker.
Yeah, so we also in a startup, when you collect a team or put a team together, you do a lot of work to find the perfect people into that. And then in that space, there is not that many people that you can drive kind of to this. But I think that at least when we do so, young people, women, kind of enthusiastic about the thing. To even though you're not in the space yet, you can learn, and we can actually give the model that I was talking in the early thing, that technology is so much more than just doing that one thing. So if we can give them the model on what it actually can be, so then it maybe comes kind of from those little spots to kind of grow to a bigger thing.
Tomas?
But I would dearly love to hire more women than I do today in the tech space, that's for sure. And it's a challenge to get the right types of candidates today. And if you look at what we've done, for example, in Riga, in Latvia, where we have our local nearshore delivery center with 1,500 people or so, and we hire a lot of people every year. And there we have managed to get the gender diversity of females to over 40% by a very systematic program where we take junior people and we train them ourselves over summer. And we have a big campus, we run it every year, and then we hire people from that. So we've done, we're just not looking to get people kind of from somewhere else or from other jobs. We're actually training them ourselves, so we get them into the profiles we need, right? A lot of proactive stuff going on.
Yeah, it was just about, maybe just to comment on that, I think we often advise our startups to hire for soft skills other than hard skills. So people with problem-solving skills, creativity, empathy, etc., because the rest could be trained afterwards.
Indeed, right, I agree. The most important skill is the ability to learn.
Exactly.
And then, your baseline is what it is, but if you got the attitude, you can do whatever.
Exactly.
But of course, Ekaterina, you already referred to the numbers, but according to the recent report by Unconventional Ventures last year, about 93% of the venture funding went to all male founder teams, and only 6% went to diverse teams, 1.3% to female teams. So very little capital is invested to companies founded by women. What could be reason for that?
Well, first of all, today we don't see enough of companies run by women or run by diverse teams. So that's something that we are trying to change, and we are trying to encourage founders to start with diverse teams from the very beginning, as well as promote women to the leadership roles and make women responsible for sales or for P&L. I think another issue is that there are very few women on cap tables today. Again, being a VC, I see hundreds of cap tables every year, and unfortunately, women still own a very small portion of our businesses. So again, if you are in a position, or if you're one of the founders, make sure that you are intentional about your cap tables and make sure that you give people a chance to own the business that they work for. And if you are an employee in a startup, I would really encourage you to start the conversation around the ownership. And often we take a lot of risks by joining startups. We already take a lower salary, so make sure that you get to own part of the business.
Well, of course, you can't invest to female founders if there are none. So, Anna-Maria, why do you think there are still so few female startup founders? Why did you become one?
It's not that I wanted to become a founder. There was just something that I wanted to do. So it's not me, it's the thing I wanted to do. And if I would have known the statistics beforehand, I maybe be a bit hesitant about entering, and I didn't actually know that there is a difference if you're a woman or a man or who is looking for money. I thought that it's the kind of the thing that you do, and I think it still is. It's maybe, so I actually don't know where that thing comes from, but that one I know that in the tech space, as I was telling, so women who go into the tech space are maybe more kind of focused then that they are really interested in that specific area and not kind of then going towards that building a company thing. Maybe there is also really few role models in Finland, at least, that there is not that many that you can follow and think as a young person, yes, this is what I want to become.
Yeah, it's all about building self-confidence in women already when they're young, right? That they are good, they can do this. It's not like a boy's hobby to build Legos and so forth, right? They should get into this early and build that kind of belief in themselves that they are good. Now we have too much of a bias kicking in at an early stage, and we see too few women going into these technical studies because of it.
Well, in 2011, when I listed some early female founders in Finland. There were only a few of them, but now I keep an Excel file where I list female startup CEOs, and now there are more than 30 names on my list in Finland. That's great. So to actively promote and give them voice is something that we can also do in media. But do you think women startup entrepreneurs are more risk averse? Is it too risky? Like venture capital is a high risk thing.
From my personal perspective, I'm not a risk-taking personality as such. I have, the family and the children. I need to get kind of them food and everything. So it's not that I want to do this big thing and I take all my risk, my money and my life, and I do this. It's not what as my personality. So, but you don't need to be that. So maybe it's a bit emphasized that you need to drive for that, but you don't. You can just do it beside everything else in your life.
Why would it be high risk?
Well, most of the VC-funded startups fail, actually. So.
But that's typically a good lesson, and it doesn't mean that you kind of necessarily individually fail economically when that happens, right? So people probably perceive it as a bigger risk than it actually is for themselves, right?
And it can also be a mental risk in a sense. It's much more safer to work for somebody else and they just tell you what you do, and then you maybe fail, but it's okay and you can do something else. So in a startup life, it's really kind of the whole of the responsibility that you take, and it's the risk for everybody that is working for you, so you cannot fail. So it's in a sense, it's a risky thing to go, and you need to be really brave to go that path.
But I agree. I don't think, of course, the risk is there. You need to accept the fact that the risk is there and just live with it. And if the startup fails, well, nothing goes wrong. You can continue with your own life. We have super good support from the government, etc. So I don't see too much risks in that either.
Yeah.
But if you look at the poll answers for how many % of your organization's employees are female, most of you in online audience say that the 0 to 25%. So there is really a lot to do. But there are some companies that have majority of female, so that can happen too. Interesting. But the next poll question is, and please go and answer, does your organization have women in C-level positions? So go and answer that, we can see that too. Because there are bottlenecks in every phase of this pipeline. And first of all, there aren't enough girls who choose to study tech. Then even if the companies try to recruit 50% men and female, as you do in Accenture, for example, then women don't stay. And then if there are too little women in senior or leading positions in big tech companies, it affects on startups too, because then you don't have the experience that's needed to become a founder. What do you think about this development and what to do with all these bottlenecks?
So I think you need to work at all levels, right? We need to work on women taking more technical education or changing what we call technical education to accept a broader base of women in there, however you want to view the situation. But of course, it's clear that we have a negative trend in terms of then career projection for women in tech organization. That's the same at Accenture historically, where you look at where do we have our women. The higher up you go in the organization, the less women we have. And that's what we are working on very hard right now. And we are, there's a number of things you can do. First of all, there are some of these critical points you need to look after. For example, after maternity leave, maybe they look at life differently. How can we kind of give them a different role if they want to do some, less hours? We be flexible. So there's a lot of this communication and, giving people the freedom to be who they are aspects that just need to be very clear. Because if nobody ever talks about them, then people might assume that actually it's not good and I'm different, so I'm going to do something else in life now. And we're putting emphasis on those. We're creating networks for people who are out on maternity leave or paternity leave and these kind of things. But then we need these role models. And we are very strict right now, for example, on promotions. And when we promote people in our organization, we need to ensure that we have gender diversity. We are very strict on. I just looked at all the statistics for this year's round, which will come public internally in Accenture in December on promotions, as well as on bonuses and pay increases and these kind of things. And I just looked at all the data points, and it is surprisingly good in terms of, we don't, for example, allocate bonuses to male over female too much and all those things. But that requires a rigorous process to make sure that all this works and nothing wrong happens. But we still need to make sure that we get these role models in play, so that creates more pull, because otherwise it's a lot of work, and we're not there yet, right? We're working hard on it, but there's still a way to go. But right now, our CEO is female, our CFO is a female, and our HR global officer is a female. So we have our global leadership webcasts. There's only women on it.
Well, that's great to hear. But according to Accenture and Girls Who Code, in the US, about 50% of women who work in technology companies leave before they turn 35. Does this happen also in Accenture in Finland?
Well, I don't know the percentage, but it's very clear that as we go, over career levels, we have less women per career level, right, as a percentage. So it shrinks, the percentage. And that's the objective that we're trying to turn around. So we don't want to end up in a 50-50 split on diversity, but then we have a skewed women pyramid like this and a male pyramid which is kind of heavier at the top. That's not the objective. The objective is to have leadership teams that are also diverse, right? And that's the objective, for sure.
Well, the answers for the poll, does your organization have women in C-level positions? Yes, said 77% of you in the online audience. So that's, I think, pretty good. What do you think?
But you remember, the C-level is a pretty broad group of people. So you have quite many people, let's say 10, 15 in a C-level organization, typically on leadership positions. And typically at least one of them is female, right? But the question is, what is the actual percentage of women, right, in that group? Do you have women in business leadership positions? As the CEO, you typically see women in HR role or in support roles, but you want them there in front leading business groups and units as well, right?
But if we think that the culture is the key, and there are bad examples too. In 2017, Me Too came also to tech industry, to Silicon Valley companies and international VCs. Then we saw a lot of articles about toxic pro culture. I also wrote some articles about it. Is that the reason why women don't stay in tech companies? Do you see that kind of culture in any startups you have invested, or any?
I would like to say no. Of course, I think we have too many startups that we invested in who are funded by male-only teams. I think this has been changing, and we've been trying to invest in companies that are diverse from the very beginning or from the get-go, because otherwise it's very difficult to fix in the future. I think, again, the first step is to realize that your company or your team is not diverse enough, gender diverse enough, for example. And then if you do want to fix it, I would suggest that you hire a woman as your next executive hire. Again, there is a lot of research suggesting that teams with a woman executive or woman CEO hire 2 times more female in the team. So
this
that
is
will
a
help
Kaufman
really
Fellow report.
Exactly, and
Yes.
if there is both the female founder and the female executive, it goes up to 6x. So the numbers will change a lot in the future if you make an effort and if you make the next hire a woman, next leadership hire a woman.
But does it help if you have more women as VCs?
Absolutely, there is also a lot of research around that. So I believe women in investing roles, so investment professionals, lead 2 times more rounds at seed and early stage, giving female founders a chance very early on in their career. So again, I think having more female investment professionals would help a lot. And I hope that's something that our institutional investors start paying attention to.
So if we go one round about the solutions to the problem, what could help to this situation?
So if you look at the latest research we have, it indicates that while there is general acceptance of this, 65% of leaders in organizations believe that they have an inclusive and open culture for diversity. And then if you ask from the employer perspective, they say 35%.
So there's a gap.
There's a gap, right? So we are at the stage where understanding is there, but it hasn't really kind of penetrated into actions yet. And we need to close that gap so you get to 100% on both sides. And right now, the responsibility is on the leadership to take action here, to drive a diverse culture, inclusive and give everybody an equal opportunity. And of course, if you're a leader, a CEO, there's many things on your table. You have financials, you have partnerships, you have technology, you have quality, you have innovation. And these days you have health, and then you have CO2 emissions and carbon neutrality, and then you have culture and equality as well. And you just need to understand that these things are also important, and get that into your agenda, right? And there's a certain type of bias that I believe exists where you kind of automatically assume that everything is okay because you just think it's okay between your own ears. But no, you need to show example, you need to be out there and you make sure that these things are actually in play.
Do you want to go? Anna-Maria.
Yes. So I would maybe change things from the young generation by kind of encouraging or showing them more that what a tech career can be. So not just the technology of a certain kind and you need to be interested in this or that, but on a broader level, show them that what can they do, because I also have a 17, 18 years old girls, and I asked them yesterday night, I'm going to this panel tomorrow, so what do you think about the tech as a career? And their first answer was, oh no, I actually don't like that, and I don't want to go there because I'm not interested in this or that. So they clearly cannot see what it can bring to their lives, and it also maybe also can affect that if they go there and they understand what they can do, they may also retain in the area, in the big companies, that they learn what they can do. They can ask for responsibility, they can go for those more senior positions, and they can actually think of a lifelong experience through the technology. So I would go from there.
And maybe to add to what has been said in terms of startup ecosystem, then again, I would first of all encourage you to make your next hire, leadership hire, a woman. Then I would definitely like to see more women going into investment professionals roles and investing in startups. And then more women on the cap tables of businesses. So maybe compromising on your salary, but then making sure that you get to own the business that you are running.
Well, technology is the space where we do impact and change the world, so actually we need to be involved, all of us. Thank you, Tomas, Ekaterina, and Anna-Maria, for this great discussion, and thank you, online audience. Let's work together to make technology more diverse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.